Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Call the meeting to order at 7:01. Do you have any public participation? Doesn't appear. Okay. So, just wait a couple minutes. People are joining. Share the agenda. So next item is approval of minutes from November. Robin sent an updated minutes a couple days ago. So
Motion to approve the minutes from November.
Second.
all right,
Sorry, who said second?
Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Sorry.
all right, Tiana,
Yes.
Dan. You're on mute.
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Myra,
I'll abstain because I missed the meeting.
Robin,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Ann.
I missed the meeting also, so I'll pass.
All right. Thanks all. So next item is welcoming our new student members. Welcome. We have William and Eliza, and I think I saw Fiona hopped on and maybe hopped off, but welcome. Do you guys want to give a little background of why you wanted to be on our committee and what grade you're in and all that? Anybody can start.
Yeah, I can go first. So my name is Eliza. I'm a sophomore at the high school, and I wanted to join this club because I'm very interested in helping out my community and I want to make impact. And when I saw like the application in the paper, I read it and was very interested, and I want to help make a difference in the community.
Great. William, you want to go next?
My name is William Buswell, and I'm a junior at Wakefield High School. And I came here because I also wanted to learn how to make a difference. And as captain of the recycling team and a birder, I also wanted to kind of better understand how the general environmental and ecological effects of our town work. So
Great. And Fiona, I see you just joined. We're just going around with new students. Just let us know what grade you're in and why you want to be on the committee.
Okay, I'm Fiona. I'm a junior and I want to join because I'm like really interested in environmentalism and I want to learn how I can like help make a difference in the community.
Great. Welcome. Welcome to our committee. Glad to have you
Welcome.
on board.
Melissa,
Melissa, should we introduce ourselves to them?
Yeah, sure, we can do that. I guess I'll start. I'm Melissa Usen. I'm the chair of the ESC, and I have been on the ESC for, I guess, coming on 2 years this coming year. I am also the head of the waste reduction subcommittee, so you'll learn about all of our subcommittees as we go forward in the meeting, and of course we'll send you information about them so that hopefully you guys can help out. Dan, you want to go next?
Well, Hi, I'm Dan Noren. I'm a board member of the ESC. This is my second year. And like the three of you, I'm very interested in environmental sustainability. And I wanted to make an impact, starting with, with Wakefield, and then see where we can go from there. And great for you guys to join us. Thank you very much.
Tiana?
Hi, I'm Tiana. I've been in Wakefield about 3.5 years. I work in sustainability at an agriculture company called Indigo Ag, where we're trying to help farmers be part of the solution. And I joined the committee about 6 months ago, maybe, to also, like you, try to make a difference and see what we can do in our local space. I chair the community education subcommittee, so we're trying to get the word out about all the good stuff we're doing and all the ways that people individually can make a difference in our town. So welcome.
Tom?
I'm Tom Betcher. I am a gas and light commissioner. I am the liaison from the gas and light board to the ESC. This is my second year as the liaison from the gas and light board, and this is my 4th year as a commissioner.
Myra?
Hi, I'm Myra Sessions. I'm one of the resident members of the committee. I've been on the committee for 4 years, which is since its beginning. So this is my second term, which has been sort of, it's fun to see the committee through its journey. I think one of the reasons I started on the ESC with probably the least experience. I work in healthcare. But what really inspires me about this committee is that really the ability to make a difference in our town. I find when people ask for things, when people sort of champion and sort of raise their voices and say something is important to them, that usually the answer is yes. And so I think we've really been able to make some really marked differences in our community. And I think students have a real opportunity to contribute to that and to drive that. So I think I think we'll come to you and say, what's the change that you want to see and how can we help make that happen? Because I think the ESC has a really great track record of being able to do some of those things. And so we're excited to have you join us and have your voices and your ideas.
Myra is also the vice chair.
I guess so, yes.
Robin?
Hi guys, my name is Robin Greenberg. I am the recording secretary for the committee, and like Myra, I joined in year 1 after this was created by the town council, and Julie gets that big honor, and we're always thankful for her to have created this committee. My day job is I'm an architect who currently is working in a K-12 public school project, and so I joined to take my professional knowledge and understanding of buildings and its relationships to educate our environment and sustainability, and trying to see what I can do to influence our town and meeting kind of those goals. So welcome, guys.
We lost Melissa. Julie, you want to go next?
Sure, I was just gonna, hi, everybody. It is so great to have the students here. When we set up this committee, that was a really important aspect of the structure of this. And so, not only will we ask you for ideas, but you should feel perfectly comfortable coming to us. If you see anything, we have an amazing group here. I'm a town councilor in town, which kind of gives me a different perspective and maybe a different ability to bring things through. But everybody on this call, whether professionally or just from their personal experiences, are here to really make change. So thanks for stepping up and being part of this group. I'll pass it to Anne.
Hi, I'm Ann Waite. I work for the Wakefield Public Works Department. I'm interested in offering more opportunities for Wakefield residents to recycle, to have less trash, to make things easier for people. And this group has done so much. It's great to be part of it.
I will
Sorry,
say,
my
we also
internet-
have one other member, citizen.
Right now?
Are you back, Melissa?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, yeah, she's going in and out. Sean,
Can
did
you hear
you
me?
go?
Oh, Sean, did you go? Sorry.
No, I can introduce myself. Hi, I'm Sean Cash. I'm on the committee as a Wakefield town resident. I'm involved in the land use committee subcommittee, as well as the community education subcommittee. And in my day job, I'm an economist and professor in the agriculture, food, and environment program at Tufts. Good to meet y'all.
And we have one other citizen member who's not here tonight, by the name of Chris Lewis, who also has sort of a day job in environmental sustainability, and a newer member of our committee, but really a good champion. So our voices are very diverse, but we have a lot of fun. You know me, I'm all about fun.
We also have a school committee representative. I don't know that she's on, but just so you know, the things that you see in the school, we put a school committee person on so that they can kind of use those channels as well to make change.
So Maya, Melissa, you back?
Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on with my internet.
It might help if you go off video.
I don't know. It's been acting up lately, but we'll try to push through here. Did you guys finish intros? Sorry.
Melissa, in the event we lose you again, you may want to make a co-host so someone else can take over if they need to.
You want to do that for me? I was going to ask for screen share permissions later, so happy to co-host.
Nope, done. She did it.
Sorry, guys. Need to call my internet provider. Sorry about that. So let's, so we did this, all the intros, right? Sorry, I missed.
Yes.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is something that I wanted to bring up because of, let me share my screen again. So I wanted to open a discussion about ESC's role in large town infrastructure projects, since we have a lot going on right now. And we just had town meeting, and you know, there's an important vote on the energy park, and you know, there's going to be a big vote on the high school. So I was just wanted to open up a discussion about, you know, whether ESC should, you know, take some sort of stance or opinion on, you know, supporting or not supporting these big projects, so that we could, you know, lend our support more formally to some of these projects that, you know, may give some weight, may not, but just, you know, have like a formal stance. So what do you guys think?
I think that's a great idea. First of all, it gives an introduction to whoever's working on these infrastructure projects to the ESC. They may or may not know them. The other thing is it gives a clear indication of where we stand on what's going on in the town on these big projects.
So are you imagining, Melissa, for example, on the high school? I mean, I think we all personally have opinions on the high school in its many facets. Are you imagining that sort of the committee would take a sort of we support or we don't support kind of like black and white stance, or would it be sort of more of a, you know, these are the components that
Well-
that we support that are important, or you know, I know that we've been involved all along in the, you know, in the high school and sharing opinions on how to make it a sustainable building and how to, you know, emphasizing those kinds of environmental components.
Yeah.
But you're imagining something broader.
Well, it could be anything. I mean, it was just an idea of like, you know, how we can, you know, play a role in these large projects and lending our support and our opinions. And, you know, it could be as black and white as you said, like we support, we don't support, or it could be, you know, aspects of the project that we support or don't support. It could be, you know, anything really.
Yeah, I'd like to offer, you know, our advocacy and education around why, you know, certain components are absolutely important and essential to, you know, environmental impact on these projects. You know, there's a lot of, you know, take the high school, for example, there's a lot of sentiment that making a building green has a, you know, much higher capital cost, which isn't necessarily always true. And, you know, in the long-term operational costs, you know, just even the operational financial costs are generally much lower. You know, take, for example, the email that just came out on the BU's Jenga building, where, you know, their investments in making a net zero building pays off in 10 years. Whereas, you know, if you build a fossil fuel building, there is no payoff on that. Actually, it probably will cost more to operate in the future. So I think that we have an opportunity to help educate the whys and, you know, lend our support and expertise around those particular items on these infrastructure projects, you know, going forward and to the general public.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be great if we can have, at least if as a committee, there are things that we can vote that we agree on, like XYZ thing is worth the cost because it does this, that, and the other. It is beneficial. As a committee, we agree that's great. That then we can do a lot more to promote it, to share it, to, you know, be outspoken about it without sort of stepping afoul of, you know, sort of what we can do as members of a committee. Like, I know personally, when I spoke at the town meeting about the energy park, I was, you know, wanting to express my perspective, but not sure, you know, where that line is. And, you know, leading into it from, you know, like the community education standpoint, had wanted to just say, this thing, it's a topic. If you care about this topic, come to the meeting. But that's, you know, just to be only factual about this topic will come up. If we vote to like that we agree with some particular statement, then I think we could say a lot more and use our platform.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder whether we don't come up with like 7 or 10, and I don't know what the number is, but whenever there's an infrastructure project, and whether it's public or private, quite honestly, maybe just call it a large project, you know, do we want to look at core things like building efficiency, like open spaces, you know, emissions footprint? I don't know. I think we could probably pretty easily come up with a list and maybe just apply that list to all projects. And then we could go down and kind of say independently, well, you know, it's, yes, it's, you know, we're happy with this, we're not happy with that. But then we're at least putting the same lens on all projects. And what I like about that too is maybe, you know, there are private projects that the town has some say in through our zoning board of appeals or conservation commission or even traffic advisory. Like, I actually think that like public transportation options around any of these new buildings, public or private, are super important. Then we could, you know, we could go to those entities that are making the decision and say, we've evaluated this project like we do for all, you know, projects over 10,000 feet or something in the town. and here's where we think it's really good, and here's where we think it needs a little help. Kind of come up with like a little criteria or something.
Yeah, like a checklist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the MVP, did some of that framework that was done like 3 years
Good
ago. I think it's worth going back to that, because I don't think that criteria is being applied for big or small projects in town. And I think, I think some that the town do, I think it's worth looking at and saying, are we living up to our own values that we, but then I think for larger projects on the private side too, I think, I mean, that was a rigorous process. And I think it, and I don't know who owns it. I know there's been some turnover, and for sort of formally who owns it. And so I think the idea was that this committee kind of.
I love that idea. I think we should maybe put it on an agenda to have, and Ann, I don't quite know who owns it yet, but enough of us probably know about it, where we can maybe do a 15 or 20-minute primer for this group. So, and for the students, the MVP, and maybe others too, is the Municipal Vulnerability Program. And it's basically kind of the climate resilience. And we went through a very, very intense process a couple of years ago here in Wakefield, and all new projects are supposed to consider what will be the impact of those projects on certain criteria, social criteria, climate criteria, things like that.
And are they?
I don't think that they're being consistently applied, which is where I think I think you're right, Myra. I'm not sure we need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
in terms of criteria.
I think the criteria exists, and we can decide as a committee which ones are important and which ones we think are relevant now. But I think that was something the town committed to, and it's worth relooking at them.
And was there, when that happened, it was before my time, was there a plan for how it would be, how projects would be measured up against it, or like who goes through that process?
I think so. We did a training course for committees. Like, I remember a permanent building being there, and I remember us using the school as an example. So it's a good, I think we need to like dust it off and figure that out.
Yeah. Well, that goes hand in hand with the green communities kind of, right?
Right.
So,
well, I think master planning, we're in the middle of a master planning process, and that I think if we want to do this, I think that gives us a starting point that's already been sort of validated and signed off on.
Julie, sorry, Myra.
No.
Does the MVP have like the framework in it? And I'm touching upon your idea, and I know that we've kicked this around a bit around the ZBA, and maybe we have the focus of the environmental sustainability part. When a project comes in front of the ZBA and they're asking for that variance, that the ZBA has kind of a checklist or punch list of things that are important from an environmental standpoint that can be asked for at that point in time. I was just reading about the 40B coming back in front of the ZBA on North Ave, and there are concessions there, but for example, I know that the EV stuff isn't in place yet. Hopefully that will be, with the green communities stuff, but making them put in to or some number of chargers, making sure that they have bike racks, any of those things, requesting that the landscaping have native trees, any of those things that kind of pop up from our perspective, that the ZBA is equipped to go down a punch list. And then I was just wondering if within the MVP, the framework there for that.
I think it is. I'm looking at it right now, and we'll definitely share this. And I think we should put this on the agenda. Yeah. But there's a framework, and it says basically, so one of our the values we agreed on for projects in town are equity, greenhouse gas emission reductions, regional collaboration, and resilience. And so there's a question for every project that says, okay, under equity, community engagement, the question, if it's a positive impact, it says communications about the projects are clear and accessible to all. A neutral contribution or criteria is there are available communications, but accommodations have not been made for them to be accessible to all. So maybe you're in a place where, our environmental justice area where English is not the first language or something. And then a negative contribution is there's significant barriers to access and communications about the project. And quite frankly, I mean, the VOC might not have even, passed that criteria, some of them. And so it goes down that for each section of infrastructure. So I think there's actually questions, and you can rate a project based on positive, neutral, or negative on each of these criteria. And it seems like every project should have that matrix assessed.
Okay, so there's some precedents in this. Last year, Maya, you may remember this, and we actually sent a letter to the superintendent of both of the regional vocational high school and the Wakefield High School. And we specifically said those types of things. We talked about, the resilience framework. We talked about where we stand on certain things. And what I can do is I can send this letter out to everybody again. But we did this last year, and I think that we should continue to do this. The question is, do we formalize this? Do we actually have a subcommittee or a person that's in charge of doing this type of thing?
Yeah, I think so.
I think
Wait a minute,
are
we filling up the MVP, or they're supposed to respond to the MVP
I
and
don't
then
think
review it?
any, Anne, and you speak up, Anne, if you know different things are happening in the DPW, because I'm certainly not involved in day-to-day town things like this. But I am not aware of any project saying we have evaluated this project based on our municipal vulnerability values, which is what the framework is.
I agree. I don't.
Okay.
So as a committee, I don't think we could fill it out because we'd only know a little bit of the information. It wouldn't have, they could be doing things that aren't obvious to us. City of Boston has zoning triggers. One's called Article 80 and the other one's Article 37. Article 37 is the sustainability zoning article, and it says that if you're a large project, and that's defined in Article 80, you have to meet this criteria. And so when you file for planning, zoning, building permit, all of that permitting process, you have to come with the answers to the questions. And so, yes, it's the applicant answering, but it really only can be the applicant because we wouldn't know what to put in. The city then reviews it to see if it feels that they've answered it meeting the criteria, but a committee can't do it.
Yeah. No,
So maybe part of our role is to push
sense.
for projects to do this. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, we give it to the head of all the projects to fill out, and then we review it and see, whether it meets our criteria, and then we can support it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if it's part of the town, I don't know what the MVP is part of, is it part of town regulation?
It's not really a regulation, but we certainly got state funding, and there's more state funding if we use this effectively.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
So,
say, go ahead, Julie. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It is incumbent on the applicant to fill it out. I'm, we're circling around it as we as a committee, probably should figure out who is responsible for enforcing that, where does that get triggered, right? The Article 80 in Boston is triggered by certain sizes, when the applicant is filing, I'm assuming, a building permit or, a request. So, is it for town projects, permanent building committee is enforcing that on the town for large town projects, and then obviously maybe the MVP needs to be enforced at time of a building permit is pulled, and that's done through the building department.
Building department's the only thing that everyone goes through.
Yeah.
So to have it apply to both public and private projects, that kind of has to be the universal thresholds. It could be part of the discussion of other permitting processes along the way, but if you were to only have it asked at ZBA, well, not all projects are required to go through ZBA. Not all projects are required to go through planning. Wouldn't you want it to apply to everybody?
Yeah.
But then is there?
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought, John.
I would say, our part of the MV, as part of this committee is the environmental sustainability questions and part of the MVP framework that we're reviewing those as they come through, and seeing if they meet our criteria, and if there are projects that we want to support, and that may be where our involvement gets triggered.
Right. I was going to say something similar, that it still feels like we want to have a step where, whether we're reviewing their answers or seeing whether it seems like, do their answers make us feel supportive of that project, or kind of meh on that project based on what they've said and whether they seem to be, living up to those plans. So I think we still want the step of being able to then, enthusiastically support something, or not enthusiastically support it based on their answers.
Well, I mean, considering doesn't seem like anybody's overseeing MP framework, maybe we should take that role, as well as, using it as like a, way to assess our support and actually using the plan.
I mean, I think we use our voice to say, we have this really, great, we put a lot of time into this, and our, maybe our first step is just asking everybody to use it. And maybe we take, maybe we take it over somehow, asking people to use it. I don't know. Might be something for like, I think maybe we spend the next meeting looking at it and making sure we all understand it. And it's kind of where we want to go with it. And then I think we're almost due for ESC to come in front of the town council, I would say, probably like February. And that might be a good time for the ESC to ask town council, how can we ensure that this is being used across the board as a tool that helps us make decisions. The end result is to help us make the right decisions based on these values.
And I remember, Julie and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that Joe Conway was the DPW director when this happened. I think it was after the transition. And so I wonder whether we could invite Joe to join us at our next meeting too. I mean, Anne, we love having you, but I wonder whether he could also, because I think it was with Claire. Was it Claire? Is that her name?
Yeah, it was Claire.
Who really led it. And so I think it's a DPW. And so really understanding, we're having a conversation with Joe offline about where it lives now in terms of just answering that question, because I think none of us know. But I'm happy to find the link. I think it's on the website, and send the link out to the whole committee to review it too. And I wasn't suggesting this as I agree with the idea that we should take a proactive role. I just think in terms of like a checklist or a common kind of criteria, I think that a lot of that work has been done. And I think that's why I think it's worth revisiting.
I also, just for the school in particular, that's going to be a ballot question, and there are going to be certain rules around to what, and Sean, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up. I jumped right in front of you, but there are going to be certain rules around how vocal organizations can be. And anyway, we'll just have to figure that out. Go ahead, Sean.
I'm wondering if we could invite somebody from the Standing Building Committee, or ask to be on their agenda to maybe just first have this conversation. I mean, I certainly think that there's a place for this committee, being given our focus, to weigh in, and we should. At the same time, when we're talking about like taking on a process, checklisting things from the vulnerability plan or something, I do think we're going to run into the limits of our knowledge and abilities. I know there are some people on this committee who do have specific skills where they'd be able to better assess that, but maybe one of the things we could be doing is talking about kind of, is this part of the process? Could it be part of the process, and could it be something collaborative? I mean, I think there is, again, I do think there's also a role for us to be talking about and looking at these things and giving input, because we know that's our focus. But I don't think we're necessarily well positioned to take on a not regulatory, but a formal evaluation role. But this idea of using the vulnerability plan as a formal evaluation component, or a standard one, seems like a really good idea.
Can I ask a process question, or process and timing question? When would we expect the ballot or the any upcoming votes? I'm just wondering, are we starting down a path where we're going to have a great process and checklist and way of voicing support 6 months after, when the topics come up, at least the first next couple of topics come up that we would like to voice our support or anti-support for?
So we'll have a special town meeting in January for the high school. And if it passes town meeting, so all, including you students, if you're 18, everybody needs to be there. And then
Your
it should go
parents
to
and your friends.
and your parents and your friends and everybody. We're not saying one way or the other, but every vote's going to count either way. So it will be a January town meeting, and then it will likely be a March special ballot. So an actual election. So you're right, Tiana, we don't have time to put a perfect process in place, and we should let probably perfect be the enemy of the good. And the truth is that the environmental stuff on high schools is pretty well laid out in the MSBA process. So I don't really think that's that particular project. We necessarily have to follow these whole guidelines.
Right. We
We've
may
been
decide that
very
in the meantime, we come up with, if we decide as a committee that we have a stance on the high school, that if we agree on it as a committee, we could be vocal about it.
Yeah,
I think we can show support for it. I don't think like we can use town funds to put brochures out it on things like that. We just have to get a little more clarity from the legal side of things. Like I'm not even sure how we could use the Facebook page, Tiana. So we just need to get some clarification.
Yeah. Julie, maybe it makes sense, and I was at the meeting where Tom Mullins kind of gave the ground rules of what one can and can't do, and what the body can and can't do when it comes to, Tom was speaking specifically of the high school. And certainly, and I'm just speaking from experience from my board, where, if you're certainly free to express your opinion, you can state that you're a member of the body, but just clearly state that you're not speaking for the body. You can say that, in my case, that I'm a gas and light commissioner. I'm speaking on, these are my opinions and not the opinions of the board per se. You could certainly state facts in terms of the board took a vote on this subject, and the vote was unanimous. So those are some of the ground rules that we abide by.
All right, so it sounds like for our next meeting, we'll get a little deeper into the MVP framework. And Julie, is that something that you can present next time, or?
I'll find somebody to present it. I think it would be maybe Joe. I think we'll talk to somebody in the town. The woman who she helped us put our application together, and I know she does this across the state. She might be willing to come and spend a little time with us about how other towns are using it as well. I can't remember her name. I can see her, but she has a consulting group. Kim Lundgren. Yep, Kim Lundgren and Associates.
Okay. Okay, maybe I can get her contact info from you later.
Yep. I'm gonna put it in right now.
Okay. All right. Good, we have a next step, and I think it'll be good for us to take a look at that and incorporate that into how we view projects, and use it as a framework for lending our support or advocacy.
Melissa, another possible next step is if we do as a committee want to take a stance on the new high school, that would need to be voted on at the next meeting in January, because of the timing of the special town meeting.
When is that?
The special town meeting hasn't been set yet, but it will be the
Oh.
end of January, and
Oh,
so
end of
the next
January?
meeting will be our last time.
Yeah.
Then there will be the vote, as Julie said, there will be a vote in March. This is one where this is an area where I have a lot of personal feelings. And so it's hard for me to separate out all of my personal feelings about this particular issue. But I do think having a conversation as a committee and what we feel like we can support officially in that capacity would be helpful, but it would need to be at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think the town meeting is likely to be the 28th. So when we meet, what, the 3rd or 4th? So we'll meet on the 19th, right?
Usually the second Thursday.
Oh, so the 12th. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's also possible to potentially even take a neutral stance and try to present on the environmental components of the building. You know, and not necessarily take it overall. I don't know. I just think we should work it all through at that meeting.
I think it's going to be an important message to say that we have been following this process since the very beginning. I mean, Robin has been super engaged. We have met with the designers. Like, I think it's going to be as important to people that we have been involved, and we think we've gotten some good things through, and we support the environmental aspects of the building. Maybe it might be as far as we can go, or maybe we can go the whole way. I don't know.
So do people want to take a vote next time, or do we want to just discuss? Because
Right, if we're gonna take a vote, do we need to have presented ahead of time what it is we would be voting on, or just that we are preparing to vote on some sort of statement?
Somebody would have to make a motion. Melissa could work with, like, Myra, a non-majority, to I think come up with a motion that you could circulate, but we can't opine on it before the actual meeting.
Like, it might make sense to try to come up with that motion ahead of time,
Yeah.
rather than free crafting it in next month's meeting, if next
Right.
month is when we would have to vote on it.
Right. And I mean, I know it sounds a little formal, but it may even be kind of a whereas, right? You know, whereas this committee's been actively engaged, you know, whereas we have made, you know, we have made suggestions, and, you know, many have, you know, therefore, you know, we feel like this building is the best environmentally designed building that, you know, we can get, or something like that. For people who care about that. Something like that. I can work with you, Melissa, if you want.
okay, so craft the motion and then send it around before the meeting for people to review, and then vote at the meeting?
Yeah, and we can make changes to it at that meeting, but at least that gives us a framework.
Okay.
The other thing, I just want to go back to the MVP super quickly too. We're in the budget process right now, and I know there's a number of us who are going to be advocating for a sustainability director in this next budget round. And I really think that thinking this MVP thing through is another justification for a sustainability officer who could really manage that process. So just something to keep in the back of your minds.
And what's the timing on the budget?
So the budget, we're in it right now. So basically right now, all the departments are coming. We'll go through every budget. We'll look at it. Finance committee looks at it first, and we look at it, and then it goes back to finance committee. And then the whole budget will get put together and presented at the May town meeting. So our fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th.
Yeah.
So it would be anything that goes in the budget would start on July 1st.
Got it.
But I'm really trying to think through, you know, how we can fund a project like this, you know, fund a position like this and justify a position like this. And I think, you know, there's a lot of grants, a lot of IRA money out, a lot of federal money out there right now. But this is another example where we put a lot of time and resources into a framework, and we just kind of don't have the resources to manage it. So,
yeah, same thing's gonna happen for green communities.
And green communities is going to be very similar. And green communities comes with probably enough money to fund the position, at least half of it for the first year. So if we can find some funding for it. Anyway, I know that's kind of a long-term thing, but I hadn't even thought of the MVP as part of the justification for a sustainability person. So this is useful.
Okay, so I will work with you, Julie, and maybe Myra on drafting a motion to vote at the January meeting about the high school, maybe the environmental aspects of the high school.
William has his hand raised.
I just wanted to ask a question. I'm obviously not very experienced in this kind of thing, but I was curious as to the role the Environmental Sustainability Committee holds on these kinds of issues. Like, are we mainly focused on sustainability and the actual like building of this school and other things like that, or do we play any role in like advising things on like the general conservation issues, or is that more of the Conservation Committee?
Conservation issues like land conservation.
Yeah, like that, and like preservation of different like
You
land.
referring to the forest destruction?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, it's not really clear, like, you know, which committee I would say is involved in that. I would say the Conservation Commission more than us, but we're definitely, you know, could play a role. We just haven't as of yet.
I would add that the Conservation Commission actually meets the town's requirements of the state has laws, and there's the Conservation Commission is tasked to see that those rules apply. For example, the clean water and stuff like that, and so wetlands and so forth. But you'll be hearing from subcommittees, then you'll learn that we are partnering with them on issues. So we are not limited to just buildings, and we're asking questions of other committees that so maybe they would go further with them, but you know, everything's kind of on the table.
I think there's a more general component, maybe, William, to your question. I don't know if this is part of what you're asking in terms of just like, what is our job? We're not a regulatory or approval body. We're a volunteer committee that's focusing on promoting, we are a town committee, but we're focused on promoting environmental sustainability in the town. Some of these other groups like the Conservation Commission, other commissions have formal roles of things have to be approved by them at certain stages for certain types of projects. So we'd be more giving input or inserting ourselves into the process rather than folks coming to us necessarily, unless they are asking our opinion.
Yeah, I would say we're more of an advisory committee than like a regulatory body. If that helps.
And I also will say it takes a long time to figure this out. And so we you know, ask these questions, and also it might be helpful to have a little bit of a primer outside of a meeting, a sort of a landscape of the town boards, because it took me a long time to figure it out. And so I'm happy to do that if that would be helpful.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And thank you for asking it.
Yeah.
I know sometimes we like chatter back and forth because we've all sort of been meeting for a long time. And we don't mean to, so please ask questions and raise your hand, or even just like blurt out, because we don't mean to do that at all.
I was gonna say, if you hold that sort of intro session for the students, I might want to sit in on that too, because you know, even only being here for 6 months, I suspect there are things that I could learn about how different of the other boards and committees interact with us. So
I think there's a general need in the town. I mean, as part of that process, when you get that invitation letter to, you know, that you've been, or notice that you've been appointed to a committee, and you go and you swear in, it'd be really nice if there was some orientation materials about the rest of the town structure. It was months and months before I even had half a clue, and maybe I'm operating at 60% of a clue now. So I think it's a really general need. It's not clear.
I think it's in process, Sean. I need to find out where it is though. So, or at least kind of like a guidebook. I don't know whether it does a lot on interaction with other committees, but at least some, I'll find out where that is.
Yeah, I mean, just a graphic overview, you know, because
Yeah.
you can find descriptions of all these, and for the students who are just joining, you can find descriptions of all these committees and commissions on the town website. The problem is it's not really laid out in a way like that you, unless there's something I missed, that where there's an overview saying, here's all the things that you might, and how they might interact. It's kind of specific, so yeah, it's a steep learning curve.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of part of like Wakefield 101, because like all the boards and committees and we're there, so I don't know if that's something that is part of that.
I don't think so. Good point.
It's learning.
Well, I'm not official, but I'm happy to give Myra's, you know, recommended lessons of meandering through this town for 15 years or something, and you know, between my husband and I, we've covered a number of the boards, and then you bring in the neighbors, and you know, we got a good solid representation here in our neighborhood.
All right. Maybe we can do that at a future meeting. We can all benefit, I'm sure.
Or maybe we just go to her neighborhood and just crash a party.
You know, Wake Up is the substance abuse committee in town. It's not an official committee, but they do this thing at every meeting, which I've always thought was brilliant, called 7-minute clinic. And basically they just spend like the first 7 to 10 minutes of a project of just kind of doing a one-on-one on something. And maybe that's the MVP, maybe it's how the committee works with other committees. We might want to think about something like that.
Okay.
I was going to say earlier, I think every one of these meetings I hear about a new group in town that I didn't know about, and thank you, that's the one I had, living here 7.5 years and hadn't heard of Wake Up. So
are your kids in high school yet?
Catchy.
Julie, I think that's a great idea.
What was that?
I said, I think that's a great idea. I mean, you know, spending 7 minutes on a topic, just to kind of level set everyone, I think.
And it doesn't need to be on Wakefield. It could be, you know, what Sean or Tiana are doing in their work, or just something that just makes us all smarter. And where we're not using acronyms, and we're not, you know, we're all level setting.
So you want
So
some?
I'd love to hear about the recycling club at the high school, honestly.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we can think about having like a new topic for each agenda for somebody to talk about. Could be our New Year's resolution. All right, speaking of subcommittees, let's get into updates on those. So for the waste reduction subcommittee, been busy with school waste reduction initiatives. Went in and did some hands-on recycling education of the Galvin. We also found out that we got some grant money through the WEF grants program. We didn't get the full funding that we requested, but we did get most of it. So like a partial funding to do the composting at the elementary schools. So I'm going to be starting to meet with principals, and I think Tiana is going to join as well. And Cheyenne is also helping out to talk to them about the composting program, what they would like to see as an educational component, which is part of the WEF stipulations, that we need to come up with an educational component for the program, as well as making sure that it's included in future school budgets, which Tim O'Brien who's the facilities director, is all for doing that. So hopefully that'll get added to the next year's budget. So, and also we're going to be starting a food rescue program, or restarting it at the elementary schools. So composting and food rescue were already started before the pandemic and then stopped because of the pandemic. And so both those programs are going to be restarted at the same time at the elementary schools this coming year. And maybe do some food rescue at the Galvin of the high school as well. So the composting and food rescue will be starting like a rolling basis at the elementary schools, maybe starting in January or like February until the end of the school year. And then at that point, hopefully get funded for, get part of the funding from, or get funded within the school budget. So, because we won't be able to get WEF grants any longer for the program. That was kind of part of the approval for the grant money. Other than that, I found out that the town health inspector is up to speed on the styrofoam and plastics bylaw rules. And so they are gonna add that as part of their checklist and their inspections for businesses around town, so that they can kind of be the person in charge of compliance for the bylaws, because up until now there hasn't really been anybody in charge of that, so that's a good thing. And also the waivers for the bylaws have ended, so no business can say that they have a waiver.
So Melissa, can we translate that for the students? So what the bylaws that Melissa's talking about are the ban on styrofoam in restaurants, as well as grocery stores, that sort of, styrofoam that they could use in sort of meat packaging, for example, as well as plastic reduction. So that businesses shouldn't give automatic plastic straws, and restaurants shouldn't use plastic bags, and some of those, and these were passed as town bylaws in 2019 or 2020 or something like that, but it's been a little bit slow to be implemented. But we're talking about getting our businesses to really live by those bylaw changes.
Yeah, so the enforcement of the bylaw started January 2022, and we've been working on getting the word out and education, along with the town economic director, Erin Kokinda, who's been, sending out all the information in her newsletters, getting the word out to businesses. And she's also going to be sending out the survey that we created, Tiana, finally.
I was going to say, we have had 0 new responses since last month. So
She says she's going to send in her next newsletter so the survey that we created is to basically see, kind of understand how compliant the businesses are in the bylaws, as well as if they're interested in any other sustainability initiatives, such as like energy efficiency or composting, or if they don't have recycling, so that we can gauge if we want to start any type of green awards or sustainability kind of criteria, so that businesses can say they're like a green business in town or something like that. So we're trying to get the survey out to businesses in town so that we can gauge those things, and that will drive what we'll be working on going forward. Anything I missed, Tiana?
Well, this sort of spans this in community education, but we're going to try to have Gretchen, who presented from Republic, the recycling hauler. We're going to set up a session for her to do an education for the town at large. So this is sort of at the crux of waste reduction and community education, but we're going to set up a presentation for everyone soon. I had a great chat with her today.
Okay, great.
She's very excited about doing this with us.
So I've been continuing to bombard her with questions, so. Okay, so we don't have a date yet.
No, we talked about it'll be sometime in January through March. Like we're clearly not doing something before the holidays. I actually, so in talking with her, we'd love to make sure that, you know, I don't want it to be a date that's going to conflict with any of the important other town related meetings, because there's probably a small contingent of the really interested folks who are going to want to be there. I would love to have some of the town council members there. I think it would be a great show of interest. And any other like folks from town bodies, like maybe some members of the DPW ought to be there, or Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light, like whoever is sort of relevant. It would be great to try to pick a date that works for some of those folks. I was thinking about, I don't know, could I send out a doodle to a handful of people about this, or just, you know, maybe someone can sit with me and like look at the calendar of what things go on and say, okay, it shouldn't be a Monday or a second Wednesday or whatever. So we can.
Well, maybe Gretchen can tell us like when she's available. Like
she's basically available anytime with 3 weeks notice. She said like, you know, give me a few dates and I can probably do any of them. So I figured we would start with our generally like audience availability, as well as venue availability. And it would be great if we can have Wakefield Cable Access record it so that we could share it later. So I was gonna dig into like, what does that process look like and how do we gauge their availability as well?
Okay.
Tanner, if you want
If
to reach
anyone
out
has
to me,
advice.
yeah, I can probably help you. Like CAT won't be available on Mondays or Tuesdays because of town council and school committees. So,
yeah.
and the venues they like to do these in are probably the library, the big hall at the library.
That's just, I think that was what we were thinking anyway. Yeah.
The AmeriCal room isn't bad either, but the acoustics aren't great in there.
Okay.
For recording. So,
cool. I'll reach out to you, Julie, and you can maybe help me like pinpoint some possible days that this could work.
Right.
And also see when the library
is
available.
You can look on their calendar. They have an online calendar. You can see when that room's available. It's a little helpful.
Wonderful.
Cool. Awesome. All right, next, land protection.
Just a really fast update because we did not have a subcommittee meeting since the last meeting because it was right before the last meeting and we had the holiday in there. But there also was the open space and recreation plan committee. The first meeting was a few weeks ago, and I was at that. The main thing there was really going over process and sharing the draft participation plan, which I believe is still a draft, so it's not something I think I can share right now, but I can say that, you know, the main components of that are a series of workshops to public workshops to identify the issues and a community survey that all this is going to be administered by Horsley Whitten, which is the contractor working for the town on this. And a lot of the time at the first meeting was spent being introduced to the folks from the consultant. They are interested though they have a communications plan and includes where their first thing is to say email's really good. And so I think this intersects with our still nascent efforts to build up an email distribution list for interested people to complement our social media efforts. And that's something I think then that we could also offer to help amplify the messaging they're trying to get out. So the process there really is going to, you know, this first meeting was in November, but then things really don't, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on, a lot of the consultants doing a bunch of their work, and the committee meetings and the public participation parts really start back up in March and extend through next summer. And so I will share documents as we get finalized documents that are shareable, and also the date of that next one. I'm just looking here that sorry, the information was shared in a Gantt chart, but is early February is the next committee meeting of that OSRP.
Okay. All right. Yeah, if there's anything like you know, you're the liaison for ESC, so if there's anything like that we need to as we're going, what we were talking about before, if there's something we need to vote on or lend our support or anything in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, really, this first meeting was a lot of laying out the process. And so it wasn't very much discussion. So I think there'll be when at these meetings, February, March, May, and June, there'll be a lot more to be bringing back to here. And then the other thing which I'll mention, since we have the student committee members, we had a brief discussion of this, but the Conservation Commission's looking to set up their conservation stewards group. And that I know Dan, I'll be talking about volunteers in a few minutes, and that I think is we want to use our process to help get volunteers for that. I haven't heard back from Judy about whether there's been a formal approval of setting that up. And Judy seemed very interested in setting that up with Conservation Commission, but that's great because then there are staffers who can coordinate that, and I think that will be a better way forward than trying to coordinate that through our 3-person subcommittee. Julie, I don't know if you have any.
Sean, can you say double click on what it's going to be for the students?
Oh, sure,
what
sure,
you're
yeah.
looking
So
for people to do.
So what we're looking for are so this is for public lands that have trails and other things, to really set up a formal mechanism that people can join this conservation stewards group to help maintain the trails, to look for problems that need more formal improvements, that might need town resources to do it, help clean the trails, things like that. Judy had laid out a nice set of what being a member of this group, this conservation stewards group, would have some minimum requirements of how often you would participate, about once a month. But it could be more frequently than that. So there's students who like using the trails, who are interested in volunteering in the town and getting outdoors while doing it. I think this is something that is really something for all ages to participate in.
That's great.
And I was just, Julie, I didn't know if you had heard anything more about whether the conservation stewards bit had moved forward in other things you've been involved in.
No, I haven't. I did mention it at a meeting on kind of roads and trails and sidewalks, and said that it might be something that we could utilize for the rail trail too. So then they seem to be open to that.
Great. I think that's all for land protection, unless Julie or Myra have anything else to add.
Okay. Next is building efficiency.
So I don't have much to report because they were kind of a quiet moment in some ways and a very busy moment. Starting with the Wakefield Memorial High School. Right now, the town has submitted their schematic design to the state, and then while that's being reviewed, that's the second effort is the get out the vote. So in preparation for the town meeting in January. If you're interested in the deep details of the high school, they do have some great resources on their website, and they've had some presentations. Nothing that we haven't kind of talked about before in terms of all electric, both HVAC systems, PV with the partnership with the gas and light department, attention to building envelope, to think about the building efficiency to not need a lot of heating and cooling, some landscape and so forth. They've had one community meeting since they've issued this schematic design. There is another one next week on the 15th. It includes tours. Students, you're the least ones who need to see what the school looks like. But if there's anyone you hear in your neighborhood that questions the need to have investment into the school, this is a great time to walk around. And there's a public Q&A forum. Any other kind of questions on the high school?
So I recently found out that the cafeteria is going to be a lot smaller than the current one in the new.
Okay.
And because I had met with the school food director about about the bylaws and other waste reduction initiatives, and You know, I'd asked him about the possibility of dishwashers being added to the new high school so that we could use reusable tableware in the cafeteria.
Well, you're not, okay, so is the cafeteria size the question or the kitchen the size question?
I
Because
think
those are actually
both.
two different things.
I think both are gonna be smaller than the current one.
I don't know. I haven't looked to compare. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me. The state issues guidelines on expectations of sizes of spaces. And when
Yeah.
you exceed them, it changes how they fund those additional
That-
square footages.
Yeah, that's what they
So
told me.
it discourage, well, there's not an incentive for the town necessarily to make things bigger if there's a need, but there's exceptions and Wakefield is doing it as the educational program warrants it. So I have no idea if the cafeteria dining area is different. But you think that there's no dishwasher?
Yeah, that's what they
Hold
told
on,
me. There's
hold on,
no
if you,
space.
hold on, I got the drawing, so hold on, let me see it. Let me see how quickly I can find a.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the food director told me and the facilities director. They said that both the kitchen and the cafeteria are gonna be smaller and there wouldn't be room for a dishwasher. And so I don't know if there's any way that could be changed or if it's or you said that the design is still being reviewed, right?
Yeah, this is just, the level of schematic of the size of rooms would not be expected to shift that much. The high school I work on, we do have a full dishwasher. So it's not the state is not anti-dishwashers by any means.
Yeah, I think it's just a space issue is what I was told, but
Hold on, so let's
anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because it's something that it would be great if we could.
So I guess outside of the public meetings, there were user group meetings. And so the architects would have met with the kitchen staff, all the departments. And so in that, they would have asked, what do you need in your space? So do you know if they advocated for it?
I don't know.
All right, so unfortunately, the floor plan has kitchen as just, so to speak, 4 walls. There's no fixtures shown. But let me see if there's a food service drawing. Okay, there's not a food service drawing. Let me check back with you because there's other information deep in the report that I can maybe pull out to see if they're just a question.
So Melissa, your concern is if there's no dishwasher, they're going to continue to use disposable.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not great.
yeah, I know. And this is our opportunity because we're building a new high school to have it installed right away so that we won't be, having the high school throw away stuff for the rest of the entirety of its life.
No, I mean, it's an obvious thing to ask the question of. So let me do a little digging, and if not, I will bug the architect. I might even know the food service person, but I'll go straight to I'll ask the architect since we've talked before.
Okay.
Any other questions about the high school? Students, do you guys know what you're getting? Well, you actually won't. Do you know what your younger siblings are gonna have? Do you have any questions?
Tying this back to the waste reduction subcommittee, you said that we might be bringing like motions against food waste to elementary schools. Will that also be implemented in middle and high schools as well?
So we're starting at the elementary schools because there was a program that started there before the pandemic. So, the infrastructure is kind of already there. So we wanted to go back and restart it and kind of start at elementary schools and work out the kinks and make sure, that it's, doable in the other schools. But yeah, I would love to bring it to all the schools. We just can't do it all at once. And also we don't have the budget for it. That was the main reason that, we weren't able to do it. So we did get some grant money to start at the elementary schools this year, and then hopefully it will be added to the school budget for other schools and for future years. All right.
All right, and then moving on to the other school project, which also I have very little information of because of my ability to find any public meetings focused on the school project. But I think everyone has heard that they are in public hearings at the Conservation Commission. I have sat through parts of them. They go into late into the night and part of a longer agenda, so I'm not listening to all of them. But the Conservation Commission has been asking a lot of questions on understanding and trying to reduce limit blasting, reduction of trees, protection of water and how it moves through the site, trying to, reduce how much it changes. One feature they had that I hadn't been aware of before the conservation meetings that I've been watching is they, I'm going to forget what it's called now, but I think of them as wildlife tunnels. So the new driveway off of Farm Street is the path that's, impacting the most number of trees. And so at the moment, critters just walk around the woods as they are. And when you put driveways through the woods, one of the dangers is that animals get smushed. We're changing the travel path. So engineers can make tunnels under the roadway, and animals very quickly learn to use them. Not to say that animals don't still cross the road and get hit by things, but it is providing a safer passage for some of the littler critters. I'm thinking of, I've watched video cams of everything from foxes and mice, and I don't know the diameter of them, but bigger ones, are used by deer and coyotes and so forth. So that's one happy thing in all the sad. Residents do speak up at every meeting. They ask a lot of questions. I don't stay to the end, so I don't have a sense of how long these conservation meeting discussions are going to continue. But if you want to speak up, there are those meetings you can speak up at.
Robin, do you know, is at this point, like, the site is the site and like that ship has sailed and the question is about how to minimize the disruption to the land given that site? Or is there still, like, I'm still seeing, topics around, well, why can't it just be on the football field current location? Is that still a topic?
Well, they've not been granted a building permit. They have not been granted to touch the wetlands. So they can't work without being granted those.
But they broke ground?
Well, it was ceremonial.
Were they ceremonial? Okay.
Because
like someone did a
people ask
shovel.
questions and they say, well, blasting doesn't start until. So it was a very ceremonial, I think, because there's no pathways in yet.
Wasn't there something at the Conservation Commission meeting about this?
About which start dates, or if it can?
No, about the permitting.
I've only heard discussions about stormwater management and blasting. So like I said, I listened like over an hour, two meetings in a row, but I just can't. That committee, hats off to them, because it, past my bedtime. So I don't
Their
know. I think
superintendent came to the town council 2 weeks ago, I guess, and presented the whole project, and we got to ask a lot of questions. And I'm not contradicting anything you're saying. They absolutely have to get permits still and conservation, but they were pretty clear that there is no alternative site and that this is the only site they are going to be building on if they build at all. And they really want to be, they want to build, they need to build. I mean, something like they had like 1,000 applicants for 300 spots last year. So this location is really the only place where they could increase the capacity. So where they would have the right of way to get out of the site as well. If they built it on the, they say that if they had built it on the football field, there really was no other, they would have had to do a taking to get the road out. So
Can you say that in English? I don't know what that means.
Oh, they, sorry, there was like 25, if they have built it on the, they had built it on the fields, I think there is private land. I think they would have had to, I think what they implied is they would have had to go out towards Water Street. And there was like 25 or 30 feet of private land where they would have to probably take it by eminent domain. And so there, it was really just very, very difficult to make that site work from a capacity and from ways to come in and out. And so they are entrenched on that, on the site that is going to require all the blasting. But again, as Robin said, they still need building permits. And I'm really glad to hear the Conservation Commission is, I mean, I know they're taking this very, very seriously, as they should. That's their role.
They are doing oh, now I may be getting confused, and Tom, tell me if I'm getting them too. Next Saturday, they're gonna walk the Energy Park site, the Conservation Commission. I think they're also gonna do a little walking at the Vogue, but definitely the Energy Park. But
they're doing a walk of the three, and that's actually one of the updates.
I figured. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but
no,
it came.
Sorry, but yeah, they're walking all three sites from the Energy Park, and you probably don't even know what the third site is at this point.
I heard it described at the Conservation Commission, so
I'll go into detail about that.
So the reason why I mentioned they're going to be in the vicinity, the next Saturday. So it is not a public hearing, but it is somewhat public. So if you wanted to walk with them and not deliberate with them, but if you want to just see what they see, I don't think you're prohibited. They're meeting at the gatehouse, I believe, at 9:30. So that's that. And that's all I know of building efficiency efforts in town.
Okay, thanks. Next is volunteers. Dan?
Yes, I'll make this short. So basically, at this point in time, we have 16 potential volunteers and an additional 4 that were previous applicants to the ESC positions that were open last year or this year, and last year. And so I'm ready to send. I've gotten a bunch of responses from people about what their needs would be and so forth. And a couple I haven't gotten a response, but the response, it looks like we can use as many volunteers as we can get. I'm not quite sure what the response is going to be, but all of these people have signed up that said yes, they are interested in volunteering, that they want to be on the email list and so forth and so on. I want to handle the 4 ESC people that weren't selected a little bit different from regular volunteers. And I'll get into that a little bit later. I'll send you out the information on that. But hopefully you've seen the email that shows what subcommittees are looking for. And then I'm going to be sending out the letter that's been approved by Melissa, asking them, this is formal. If you want to volunteer, you got to fill out this application, and then we'll go from there. So that's it. That's where we stand.
Yeah, I think, just like having the new year coming up, it's, a perfect time for them to get started with us, so.
And you've done a great job, Dan. It's something we've sort of talked about for a long time, and it's harder to do than we've not, it's something I've talked about for a while, and it's not something I've been able to execute on. So you've done a really nice job organizing it.
Well, thank you.
All right, thanks. Chris is not here, so I can speak a little bit about the greenhouse gas inventory. We're nearly done filling out the data needed for the inventory. We're just have a few things that we're trying to track down. So hopefully we will have some results from the inventory soon, and then we're going to create some action items where, you know, based on the results of the criteria, where we see the biggest bang for our buck as far as emissions reductions goes in the town. One thing that we've, you know, kind of seen so far is transportation, which, you know, has been discussed in the master planning and other things that transportation emissions are, you know, one of the biggest pieces of the pie. And so that's something that we probably are going to be tackling, initiatives related to reducing emissions, associated transportation. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Also probably going to be talking to Melrose and other communities that have done the inventory and see, you know, kind of what they've done with it, and look at their experiences. All right, next is green communities.
I don't have an update. So we're still waiting to hear, and I tried to get into touch with Jen today and I haven't heard from her. So I don't have any update on that. Other than as far as I know, it's going forward, and they haven't made any announcements on anybody else. So that's a good sign.
Julie, so if you haven't heard yet, given the change in administration, my experience is that we won't hear until the next one's installed.
That wouldn't surprise me. They did come out this week about some comments on some changes to the program that I don't think would affect us, but you know, would, once we're into the program, would affect us. So that's a really good point, Robin.
Things slow down this time of year every 4 years if there's a change.
Yeah.
In some other spaces, they're rushing through.
Well, sometimes they need to yes, and others they let others finish the job.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it depends on the agency. I know in some other agencies they're pushing stuff out to get it done, and you know.
Good point.
Right.
I actually, just to go back to building efficiency, since that an example that is being held up is the update to the energy code and the building code updates. They did not finalize that with this current administration. So when we heard 6 months ago that come January, something might be in place, as of a few weeks ago when I asked the question, they did not do it, and they don't anticipate having it in place in January. So the BBRS moves at their own speed. And the BBRS is Board of Building Regulation and Standards.
So Julie, do we know like when we would be able to get any grant money, or do we have to wait for the announcement?
We have to wait for the announcement.
Okay. All right, next is community education.
Yeah, so I mentioned already during waste reduction that we're trying to set up a long format education session with Gretchen from the recycling hauler. So hoping to get that on the books for sometime between January and March. But I think if it goes well, we'd like to do more such things on different topics. Maybe there's something that we can do around building efficiency or other energy efficiency topics. So would love folks' ideas on things you think people would actually want to sort of come out in person to learn about, or we could do some of them virtually as well. Beyond that, we've been continuing to spread the word on a variety of topics through social media. Our new approach is that we reshare anything that we post to both of the different Wakefield community Facebook groups, which has pretty far reach. But a lot of the topics, we're posting like almost every other day now. A lot of topics on waste reduction over the holidays. We posted some stuff about the topics around the energy park at town meeting, about the VOC being on the agenda at Conservation Commission. And I encourage folks, like, if you see something that you think should be posted, feel free to just email it over to me. and I'm happy to get stuff in the rotation. And then we also, Sean has put together an email list for us as well, so that we can be able to send things out in email as well. Particularly things that are, like a call to action, come to this meeting, there's going to be a vote about a thing, or, we're looking for volunteers to do a thing. So we'll have that as another communication mechanism. And students, we would love to have a student or several joining the community education subcommittee and help us spread the word on things. I suspect that you have all sorts of different communication ideas that would help get things out to the public, including your peers who we're probably not reaching right now via Facebook. So Facebook's for old folks like us. So we love to have you join and help us spread the word on things and reach more folks. So.
Yeah, definitely with the social media. Tiana, can I say a bit more about the email list? Because everyone should have gotten, other than the students, because the students, I had your names, but not your email addresses. You should have gotten an invite to the list today. And our also we do have community members on that list and others, and that will build up, and we'll use social media to invite people to let us know if they want to receive our updates through email. That's announce only, because we're a town committee, so it's not a discussion list. It's only pushing things out. Things will only go out to the list from the ESC email address, and Melissa and I have discussed that I can share that. And so the announcements that are going on social media, as well as volunteer opportunities, things like that. What Tiana and I have discussed, particularly for people who are very busy, that even a much smaller number of people on an email list can maybe have a lot more impact for engagement than some of the social media things, just because, especially if you're asking people to do things or suggesting, that goes into people's workflows in the way that social media doesn't always. So, and I hope we'll build up that list. But if you, and also Dan, as you're collecting more volunteer names, or if you do, please send those over to me to add to the announcement list as well.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So if somebody replies to an email from that list, does it go to the ESC email?
It'll go to the ESC email. It will not be a reply all. It'll only go to the ESC email. And as you request, I will not be doing anything with the ESC email account other than sending out the announcements. That I would not be responding to that unless you wanted me or somebody else to assist with that. The other thing that we've discussed a fair amount is that everything needs to be archived and available in case there's a town records request, a FOIA request, anything like that. So that's actually, with the email list, we have a double backup here, because sending just from the ESC email address means that everything being sent out is in the outbox and therefore is available so that something could be that is responsive to a public records request would be there. And then also it's archived through the listserv. But again, it won't be discussion, it'll just be one way, so that archive through the listserv is just a backup.
Cool, thanks for setting that up.
Sure, it's some 1990s technology. That's I'm going to be working on the fax distribution list next. So if anyone wants to send me their, it's old technology, but it's really useful, especially for when we're asking people to suggesting that people do things.
You want to define the word fax for our high school students?
So if we want something to go out from that, do we send to you and Tiana, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it should go to Tiana and me, because I think probably everything's going on social media. Tiana's been doing the social media. I'll do this. A lot of what goes on the email will probably just be amplification of what went out over social media.
Okay.
But then some of the things on the email might be different than social media in terms of opportunities for volunteers or engagement, or be formatted differently and otherwise be the same information.
Okay, great.
I also, the other thing with email, of course, is we can send attachments of things that are relevant. So.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo the, like, please send us stuff, right? If you see stuff, if your subcommittee is doing something, or you see something interesting posted somewhere else, like anything factual, or you can't go promoting products, but anything you see that you think is worth us sharing, just send it my way.
All right, thank you. So next is updates from ESC member groups. So students, just so you know, this is kind of the time where you can let us know of anything that's going on at the schools, or anything that you want our input or involvement in. So this is your opportunity in the meeting to, discuss what you want to discuss and tell us whatever you want to tell us, basically. So if there's anything right now, feel free. Nothing? Okay. Eileen is not here from the school committee, so let's move on to DPW. Anne.
So we got a few things going on. We're working on a pop-up cardboard collection for the week between Christmas and New Year's. We're thinking of putting a container at the town hall parking lot, and then people can drop off boxes and cardboard and all that for that week. If the weather stays nice, we hope to keep it to the week after New Year's. It is hard to have a container there because of the parking situation, is usually filled, but that week, those couple weeks, a lot of people are off, so we feel like it'd be worthy to displace a few people to get the cardboard container in there. So that'll happen. We have our second building down at Broadway on solar. We started getting some some credits onto our bill, which is great. I talked to Joe today, and he says 2 more buildings are in the works, possibly the flat area of the Civic Center and Town Hall. So that's great. I attended, people probably heard about the EPA is offering some grants. Now, after I attended 3 meetings, I was a little disappointed because they're only going to give out between 25 and 30 countrywide. So it has to be a regional project. So what was great though is our representative from the DEP ran a meeting following that, I think this Tuesday, and there were, I believe, 14 local communities. So people around here were all in, and so we're going to try to do something regionally and submit a grant, which topics were North Reading was interested in Black Earth curbside, and they liked how we gave out the starter kits. So he would like to, beef up the numbers, and which would only benefit us, which would be great. People talked about getting a plastic baler, so they could bale plastic, glass crusher, black plastic was brought up. More hazardous waste regional events, so you wouldn't have to wait twice a year to have an event. Very interested in that. And just composting in general, how we could a compost center, a compost place you could drop off. So we're waiting for to hear from the subcommittees, and then hopefully we'll meet again next week, end of next week. And I think that's it.
Well, that's a bummer that it's only so many.
Yes, very disappointed.
I had so many ideas.
When I saw $30 million, I was like, we could use all of it.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
And thank you for, I hear the pits open again next weekend, and I see a lot of neighbors with leaf bags on the sidewalk thinking something's happened. So thank you, DPW, for reopening. So maybe those folks will move their bags, and come winter, they won't just scatter all over the place.
Yes, and it's free, so you don't
Yes.
even need to have a pit pass, so
I posted that on social media this afternoon.
excellent.
Yeah.
So as far as the cardboard dumpster, so you're saying that that is not something that we can have like year round?
So it's very tight. The parking in that parking lot is very tight. So having it at town hall would be difficult. I think it's definitely worth for the week or two at Christmas, because I think there's so much cardboard and you don't want people throwing it out. So you want it to go there. I think we can see how it goes and how much space it takes and how busy it is, and go from there. But as a long term, I'm not sure.
And what about the Herd School, the back parking lot of the Herd School?
So one of the problems is that there's no one watching it.
Yeah,
So
I thought of that too.
I just read an article about Burlington. Burlington had put out a container and they actually had to pull it back because it was contaminated every time they went to load, and they were paying like, instead of paying like $90 a ton, they were paying $150 a ton. So they actually stopped it. So it's nice to have it at town hall because it can be watched, and if something goes in that's not supposed to be, we can keep. That's why the pit works out good, because someone's at the pit, but
Yeah.
we'll keep thinking.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because we talked about, me and Sienna about, how lots of apartment buildings can't recycle, they don't have that option. And like, if there was at least a cardboard recycling option for them year round, that would be helpful.
Yes, if we could get the weather to be a little more cooperative too, because it does make it hard when the cardboard gets wet. And it's hard not to get a top on it. So you probably saw in the paper, we did get the RDP grant for $15,400. So one of the things we're thinking of is possibly getting a covered cardboard container that has the barn doors that open, so you don't have to throw it in the top. You'd actually walk it in, and then that stays dry all the time. So we're looking into the cost of that. More expensive than we thought, but we have some ideas to open it up more often.
Okay, great. And so the recycling bin idea, is that still on the table, or?
So no one was biting on that at the meeting that I went to. Our idea was to get everyone a 64-gallon recycling container, like a toter like we have now, just in a different color. The cost is about $540,000 to give it to everyone who currently has a blue bin now. None of the other towns were interested in that. They all were like, you can put it into any container. I liked it because they all have covers, so stuff doesn't blow, and it's very uniform when you go by people's houses, and it's easy to identify because they're all the same color. So that one's out on the regional.
Oh, that's too bad. I always think that we should make the big ones, the ones we already have recycling, and get everybody smaller ones for trash. But
Yeah, I would think it would be easier for the haulers too, to just have a uniform bin instead of like all this piecemeal stuff that they need to.
The hardest thing for them is on the bigger barrels is the paper. So like if you fill a 64-gallon with paper, it's very heavy. But if you do it with the plastic and whatever, it's easy. So it'll be interesting to see if our new, where JRM got purchased by Republic, we'll see how interested they are in going to automatic. Will recycling become an automatic, and they'll require barrels? And then that makes it a little easier, we'll see.
With the truck that has the arm?
Yes, so we just pick it up and drop it in.
Yeah.
One of the hard things with that is contamination. Contamination's harder to see when the guys aren't looking in the barrel, but it's all a process.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother-in-law lives out in California, and to Julie's point, their big barrel is blue, same size, that's their recycling. They have a smaller trash barrel that's brown, and then they also do, as part of the service, they have 3 barrels composting as well, which is kind of a medium size barrel. So between their smallest barrel is the trash, and then the next one is the compost, and then the biggest one is the recycling.
I would like that bill from if everyone had a 32 gallon barrel, that'd be great.
Something to strive for.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Julie?
So I'm trying to think when the last time we met is. Probably the big news out of town council is that we did approve, let me just pull it up here. We did approve some of the ARPA money. So we had about, I guess about $6 million once you backed out some of the money we spent during the COVID for testing and some of the school stuff. So, and on the environmental side, well, there's $400,000 for energy assistance, which is good. And maybe Tom will talk a little bit about that. It's less environmental. I've been really pushing that if people get energy assistance, that somehow we should be coupling that with weatherization, because we could just spend the next 10 years giving out energy assistance funding to pay people's bills, but we really would like to try to do some weatherization, but there hasn't been a whole lot of appetite for that. Lake Quantapowhat cleanup and Vets Field bathroom. So there's 800,000 given to that, and that will get coupled with $1.4 million, which the developers at the top of the lake at that 200 Quantapowhat Avenue development are giving, plus an earmark that we got for a bathroom at Lake Q. So there's going to be some kind of drainage cleanup work and stormwater treatment happening, bioretention areas around the lake. Lake Quantapowhat pathways, we're going to be looking at kind of building out some areas along the lake up by between the, I'm going to call it the Lord Wakefield, and it's not called that anymore, is it? But between the Lakeside Office Park and probably down to the cemetery there. So improved rail, and then $1 million for rail trail and Wakefield mobility. So finishing out the planning and the design for the rail trail for the Wakefield portion of that, so that we can get the state funding hopefully about a year earlier. And then $150,000 for tree replacement, and $1.1 million for sidewalks, and $55,000 for the MWRA type water truck. So Dan, that might be a volunteer thing that we have come summertime. We need volunteers to run the water truck, which would be nice, kind of finite volunteer opportunities. So
like that would be our water truck for.
It's Wakefield's water truck. Like, we're going to brand it Wakefield, and we're going to tell anybody who comes onto the lake, well, this is my vision. Anybody who wants a permit to have any event on the lake will not be able to bring water bottles, but we will provide the water truck.
Love it.
So I'm really hoping that that will help with some plastic reduction as well. And I think we're going to really be one of the only towns that has our own water truck.
With compostable cups. So
and we're going to need to work on compostable cups. We're going to need to work on, you know, telling these events to have people bring their own water bottles. But I'm super excited about, I'm excited about that. And I don't know whether I told this group, but the town also bought, like 4 or 5, bike parking. I don't know what you call it, bike stands, I guess, bike racks, portable bike racks that can be set up at any event as well. And so the Safe Streets group is working on, all events having bike valet. So between bike valet and encouraging people to come to these events on bike and use water, I think we have a chance, if we can get back to normal this year, to, you know, really going back to our idea of demonstrating low waste, no waste public events. So excited about that. Just one more word on trees. We also had the tree warden in front of us. And a lot of discussion about how trees are taken down and kind of, it's an interesting portion of the town council. I have asked, and we're still kind of getting the system in place, but I've asked that all trees that are slated to come down be marked as such, like literally with like a sign on the tree saying this tree is to come down, you know, before X date. And if you have any questions on it, to reach out. It's unclear right now whether tree hearings are required on all trees. We all have different interpretations of that, but at the very least, if neighbors would know that a tree is coming down, and another tree, and I've asked that a notice on when the tree is being replaced also be noted. like on the sidewalk, a little like sticker on the sidewalk that says tree to be replaced. Now that won't work in the winters, but hopefully we're going to get some better communications around tree removal and tree replacement.
Julie, the latest, we had another tree on our street be cut down. That's 3 in a row.
Mhm.
Their latest is to mark it with a big white X.
I realized that. I
It's
had a tree
crazy.
taken down across from my house today, and I went out and I asked why it hadn't been marked. And yep, that's what they're doing, is an X. That was not my intention. I'm going to be bringing it up on Monday. It needs to be a sign that says, you know, this tree is slated to be brought down. And if you want to know why, and I actually has asked that there be a public website. So if you come home and a tree is gone, that you should be able to go to the town website and find out exactly why it's gone. You know, if it was deemed to be diseased or in the way of utility poles or whatever the reason. So if there's not going to be tree hearings, I'm really hoping that the record keeping around this will be better. 90 trees were taken down last year, or there were tree hearings on 3 of them. So we're working on it.
So that the hearing is not part of the process, clearly.
Well, the way I read the state law is, yes, there needs to be a tree hearing for any tree that's like over 1 foot in diameter. And even the tree warden has to, is not, but there's a disagreement on this. So the compromise has kind of been that records will be kept better and that notifications will happen. But I don't consider a white faded X a notification.
And who's putting the X's on?
The tree department is. So Anne, maybe this is something like, I know this is not kind of necessarily yours, but I'll come in and talk with Joe, and I called Steve about it today as well, as the tree was going down in my neighborhood. It probably was diseased, which is fine. I'm not saying that anything's being I'm not saying anything's being done wrong, but it's a little shocking when you come home and trees are gone. Big trees. So
I'll add that I have been advocating, you know, obviously the utility is responsible in conjunction with the tree warden for trees coming down. I have, you know, it is a drum that I'm starting to beat around notification around the abutters, be directly notified, and, you know, obviously the public posting of the tree. And I, you know, to your point, my suggestion is on the tree is, you know, tree is coming down, the reason why, and then the program around replacing the tree as well. You know, in the case of Richardson Street, where 3 trees have come down, the town has an entire plan to rescape that street, but I didn't know about that, you know, so I think it's great that there is a plan to do that. But you know, obviously the tree canopy is very impacted at this time.
Right.
And
right. Again, I don't think anything's being done wrong, but I think that the communication has been poor around it.
Terrible.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first to admit that. And you know, it is something that on my board I've, you know, asked for, and you know,
I mean, obviously the tree is in danger of falling on a, you know, go in and get it out without, but I think that 90% of the trees can be marked for a week, and abutters informed. So good news is we're putting in a lot more trees. We've finally kind of tipped it where we're putting in more trees than we're taking out. But of course, you know, and what we learned from the tree warden is that really these street trees only last like 30 years, which is really sad. But that doesn't, you know, I guess there's a lot of cement, there's a lot of salt. So you really need a plan for replacing them.
Well, and is there a plan for maintenance and watering and somebody that's taking care of the trees? Because I know a lot of trees they plant, like they just sit there and die.
That is all part of the tree warden. So I think we all need to be watching out for the trees in our neighborhood. And if they're dying, then we need to get them replaced too.
Yeah.
And we can talk to, you know, Anne, we can talk to, and, you know, I know Dennis is very open to ideas on these things. He's our tree warden. You know, I mean, maybe there's an awareness campaign, Tiana, and that the community group around kind of watching the trees in your neighborhood. I honestly don't know. They just probably planted 20 trees on my road, and I don't know what happens to them. I don't even know, do they go dormant during the winter? I don't know anything. So maybe there's some education to be done on this stuff.
Do adopt a tree program or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we could supply people with useful information about, what they should be looking for and who they should get in touch with if, does the tree on your street look sad?
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great to spread the word
And maybe
on.
Dennis is one of our 7-minute clinics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tiana, maybe even touching upon not even, how to prevent the tree from getting sad. If the dentist has tips around, to Melissa's point, adopt a tree. What are good caretaking things that a neighbor or a butter can adopt a tree? How frequently should you water it? Should you water it? All of those things. How to care for it.
Love it.
Julie, to answer your question, yes, you don't have deciduous. You have deciduous trees, so yes, they are going dormant in the winter.
That's what I figured. That's what I figured. I mean, I mean, Dennis knows this stuff. Like, I know he's planting at the right time and putting the right things in and stuff. But I don't want to overwater. And you don't want to do too much either. So yeah, just some basic kind of So I mean, maybe there's something on the web that says, so you have a new tree in front of your house. What do you do? What does it mean? When do you expect to see something? When do you know it's in trouble? A little FAQ on trees.
That'd be great.
Do we have do we know if he has any criteria around planting native trees or not?
Yeah, I don't know. These are all really great questions, and I'm sure he would come to talk to us.
We've asked that question and we received an answer. So our town follows the 10 trees for the XYZ reasons, and native is not a criteria. I know some communities, I'm thinking of Somerville, now requires it, but that is not a criteria, and they're definitely non-natives on the list because of what they consider as a priority of their chance of performance. So it would be something we'd have to be heavily advocating for them to change the list. I could go back to old meeting notes to find out where that's listed, but we have had that discussion. But I do love Somerville's efforts.
Yeah, well, there was a whole group that was, advocating for that for many years, so that's what it takes.
For the educational component, Julie, do you want to ask Dennis for that, or?
Yeah, I think I will reach out to him and I'll connect you guys.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I do think that there's probably a role we all can play in helping make this work better.
Yeah, I definitely would like to invite him to one of our meetings.
Yep. I will say all 7 town councilors are 100% behind as many trees as we can get in. Like, I mean, there are very few things we all agree on, and trees are one of them.
Cool.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Tom?
All right. I'm going to share my screen. Just going to give me a second here. Why? Oh, it's only giving me a Windows? Interesting. I'm going to have to switch then between. First and foremost, coming up on the 15th, Gas and Light is doing another energy efficiency webinar for customers. So it'll be a WebEx, so feel free to pass that on, join. They'll have Bode and Next Zero, who does the energy audits, and just kind of explaining around the energy efficiency programs that we have. Second, sorry here. Why can't I get rid of this? Sorry, my tab is in the way here. And can you see the time of use rate screen here?
Yeah.
So our next meeting in January, we are actually going to have an open public meeting per DPU, which is the Department of Public Utilities. on a new rate that we are rolling out. It is going to be EV time of use charging rates. This will be an option in addition to connected homes. So you can kind of take two paths. If you have an EV, you can do the connected homes and get the monthly bill credit. Or you could potentially take this path with a time of use rate. This will require a second meter. So there potentially are infrastructure changes that you need to make to your home or to your resident. As part of that, there'll be kind of two incentives that go along with this. If you bring your own charger, there'll be an incentive of $1,000 to make that. If you get a charger from us, the charger will be free. That infrastructure incentive is will be, I think, is around 600 or 650. I don't remember that, but we do have to have this meeting for public commentary period. And so what this will do is there will be an off-peak charging rate, which essentially, if you look at the energy charge, is 0.0408 cents per kilowatt. Or the on-peak is 45 cents, so about 5x the cost. And what this is to, you know, encourage charging at the appropriate time that for the grid. And, you know, so it's essentially overnight type charging. And so there is a discount for that, or, you know, it's kind of a stick punitive when energy is the most expensive and the dirtiest, which is the peak times. So that is coming next month. The next part I wanted to, oops, I pulled this.
Sorry, Tom, can I ask a question on that?
Yep, go ahead.
What if you have solar? Wouldn't it be best to be charging like at noontime?
Yeah, so this is going to be depending on your use case, you're probably better off with solar using the Connected Homes program. Because of this separate meter, you would not be feeding your, you know, solar production into your vehicle. So there, you know, it is definitely something to look at from an individual use case. This type of rate structure, certainly for folks that say have two electric vehicles, this potentially makes a lot of sense for two vehicle family in that aspect, or more residential unit. So the next part that I wanted to talk about, which I gotta stop sharing and share the other PDF. I was hoping I could just share the screen.
What is that meeting again? For the...
Our next meeting is January 11th. So it is, you know, can come and do open commentary around the rate itself. So the DPU requires anytime we introduce a rate or change a base rate, we have to have an open public meeting. So it'll be at the beginning of our regular meeting. We'll open up as a public meeting, and then, you know, for public commentary, and then close that, and then move into our regular board meeting. All right, next update is on the energy park. So Gas and Light was in front of the Conservation Committee on Tuesday, at town meeting for the land swap under Article 97. We had already identified Burns substation, where we've decommissioned that. We're going to make that a parklet. I do have that map up. I'll bring that up later. But there's, as part of Article 97, as we know, we have to provide land that is resource value equal or greater than the land that we're being given, because the 1 acre on Hemlock Road has the deed restriction of a park/playground. What we're looking at here on the map here. Let me just grab the pencil here. So we have Farm Street here. This red area here is our current substation. This entire box represents 13 acres of land that Gas and Light owns. We are, and depending on how the Conservation Commission would like this, we will either deed the land over to the Conservation Commission, put a restriction on the deed that this is conservation land in perpetuity, then not to be developed on. And this section here that going this way and over here represents about 2.5 acres of forest land that we are going to provide, and a 25-foot access all the way down to Farm Street, as well as Burns substation. This entire area is classified as ACEC, which is Area of Critical Environmental Concern. Some of the highest value of environmental land that Article 97 has designation. For reference, the 1 acre of land on Hemlock Road does not have that designation. So from a land value on a 1 acre to 1 acre, this has a land value of almost 2.5 times the resource value. So this is part of the property that will be walked on in 2 weeks. Any questions or anything around there?
What's there now?
Nothing. This is untouched forest land.
Okay.
So this entire area here is all untouched, you know, this entire 13 acres, except for this small area here. This is our current substation off of Farm Street here. This area is wetlands, not buildable.
Is that where the battery is, Tom?
That is where the battery is.
Okay.
So so this is like for reference, this is the Saugus line here. And so you have, you know, Farm Street coming down here. You've got Pheasantwood coming up, Pheasantwood Terrace, Montclair Ave, Castle Clare Circle to kind of orient where folks are. As you can see, this is pretty, you know, moves up pretty quickly in elevation. This is actually, it's a pretty good hike if you hike back here, but it is all forest land.
Tom, it's not really important, but why on earth does the Gas and Light have so much land there?
I actually don't have the
Like, what was their need?
I don't know why this is in our possession. I do know a previous, which I would, you know, personally don't think is a good use. I think a previous board had thought about clearing this land and putting ground mount solar here, which is not something that I would personally be in favor of. But this is, you know, at least this 2.5 section, 2.5 acre section would never be built on, including this 25-foot buffer access down to Farm Street.
So that's the town forest, isn't it?
No, this is not the town forest.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out on Google Maps where exactly that is, but.
I actually think I brought that up with me.
It looks like it's right between the town forest, like the lower left corner there on the other side of Castle Clare, I think is the town forest. But like there's that one little cul-de-sac of street between on the bottom left.
Okay.
All right,
I mean, so it might have been part of the town forest at one point before that street was there, but.
And then one more share here, just to. So, and then Burns substation here, like. So we are also providing Burns substation. This is going to be the down here. Turn this into a parklet. Like I said, this is a substation that we just decommissioned. We will remediate the land and then install this passive park here. You have Ballaster up over here and then Albion over here. And and the Google map view of that is here. So you can see the substation here. So I think this is a great use of, kind of returning industrial land back to community use. As you can see here, there's a lot of apartment complexes and not a lot of open green space for recreational use as well. So.
And what's the timing on that?
The timing on it, well, so this is all obviously all contingent on the energy park going forward, right? So we've, town meeting was a big, that vote was, and thank you everyone for that vote, was, one major step and a lot of major steps that still need to happen. The next hurdle that, now that land is, has the town meeting vote happen, now we've got to go in front of the Conservation Commission, which we're in front of now. We have to have that approval from the local Conservation Commission, and then the home petition rule needs to move up into the state legislation and the state's environmental overview committee. Once the environmental overview committee will kind of review the Article 97 land swap, the use, and then make the recommendation to the legislators. The legislators need to vote on that, and then it gets passed off to the governor's desk for sign off on the Article 97. A lot of work needs to happen in a very, very short period of time. Time is not on our side. As at town meeting, a lot of the equipment that we need to put in place to be operational for the VOC, for life safety and everything else, has a 2 to 3 year lead time. Equipment needs to be ordered this spring. Otherwise, we are not going to make those dates. Which is why, it is the amount of work that has happened in the background from, kind of we as identifying that the VOC wanted to have a fossil fuel for heating, the advocacy that happened from this group, from Gas and Light, to get the VOC to come to the table, to put the plan together, the idea of the energy park, and then to do the engineering behind it to identify the land that's needed, so on and so forth. Really, this is 6 to 9 months worth of work to get us to here, which is, I think, is just tremendous amount of or a tremendous effort to really make this happen. And it will
Tom,
be all.
It seems to me like this might be a place where the ESC voting and writing a letter to, I guess it's the state agency that we're in favor of this might be helpful. Like maybe you could help figure that out.
Yeah,
with Senator Lewis.
I think the immediacy is the next Conservation Commission, because they have to approve this before we even go to the state.
Okay. Okay. Well, you let us know when we can engage, because I think that, this is a place where the town's already voted on it, but I think kind of us coming and saying this is really important for us to get done. And I have to tell you, in addition to loving the energy park, the fact that there's going to be a park here amongst all of these high-rise buildings where people do not have outside places, I think is really huge, really, really important.
Agreed. And I do, and this is, and I'm going to speak personally, and pardon the pun, but there are some segments that just kind of aren't seeing the forest through the trees. I'm the last person that will advocate taking down trees, but the environmental benefits alone for the energy park and the VOC not going natural gas is just tremendous. I think what's impactful here is just the VOC alone represents 2,600 metric tons of carbon per year savings that we would have annually. That number also increases as the grid gets greener. So by having the VOC all electric, that the carbon savings is just tremendous. To kind of put that in perspective, the trees, I know that there's a bunch of habitat and everything else that's kind of in that area on Hemlock as well. But the trees represent 3 metric tons of carbon. Just the scale is just enormous. And then you layer in the high school, it doubles that carbon savings. And then potentially, down the road, the energy park potentially could support Woodville, which we know in the next 5 years or so will need to have its HVAC replaced and potentially could also be electrified as well. So it just it's kind of one of those things that continues to have immense environmental benefits.
And I think this will put Wakefield on statewide. Like this is going to be one of the most unique programs in the whole state. We are going to become kind of a model for what can be done. So like this changes a lot in Wakefield. We're not always the cutting edge, but this is cutting edge stuff.
It absolutely, we've already seen, like, even within the Power Association, the interest in this from a unique project. I've talked to a lot of people and they're like, this is really cool. Especially when they find out that I'm, from Wakefield, they're like, I heard about your energy park and this plan, that's really cool. And there's a lot of interest in there. And it just, and then we have the financial benefit. So we as Wakefield's ratepayers, we'd almost be penalized, pay higher rates by not building this from the capacity resource that it will provide to us as ratepayers.
So Tom, you said the Conservation Commission is the next important step. What can we do to help? I love Julie's idea of when we get to the stage after that of like endorsing it to whichever state bodies you have to go to. Like, would it help if we show up at CONCOM for this?
I would think so. I think ComCon, and I unfortunately was unable to attend Tuesday's meeting, but I do know that there was quite a bit of public participation with rightly concerned about the trees, and it's partly from the concern from the trees from the Voc, and then the concerns from the trees here, and just to kind of Gas and Light extensively, our engineering firm extensively looked at the available land in the area that the energy park could be sited. One of the tenets of the energy park, it has to be in between both schools to really service them, and to it's got to be all one kind of package to make all this work. We did approach the schools about the parking lot across from Landerkin, and that was just wasn't even part of the discussion. They looked at every other part of the land there, and this was really the only piece of land that could be utilized. There's not a lot of land in between both schools, right, that isn't already used for a field, a parking lot, or other more valuable environmental land as well. So that was kind of, it just wasn't willy-nilly picked, like, we're just going to put it here. There was a lot of thought and consideration on the siting of it.
Tom, I want to say that you guys did a great job on quantifying the trees in comparison to the Voc, which doesn't tell you they have not, I mean, there's a whole lot more land to do it, but they're definitely vague, and it's just forest, right? And you guys know your site very well, and that was really transparent, and it was informed. The Q&A from like the Conservation Committee sometimes was just because people just see the woods and they don't know what's Breakheart, what's Voc, whose land is what. People just are making generalizations. How do you not have to blast? Because the others have to blast. So I think their site visit next Saturday will be great because they'll know how tiny you are and
Yes.
help define how different your site is from maybe the more sensitive sites elsewhere that is off your property, not for your consideration. So I think your group came well prepared, and it was obvious to me. So kudos.
I mean, they've already they've identified down to the tree. There's
Yep.
120, like counted,
Yeah.
not 130. There are 128 trees that they will remove, and they've gone in, and there'll be they're leaving trees in the buffer zone between the street and where the substation is. So they know exactly the 128 trees that will need to be removed to clear the site. And one thing that wasn't necessarily clear in town meeting is while we are getting an acre of land, we're only going to be using probably just over a third of that acre for the actual siting of the equipment in the energy park. The rest of it will, those trees will remain.
I did have a question. The burn site, if something were to happen, this doesn't proceed, what would you do instead? Because you kind of imply that the conversion of the substation to a park is contingent on other stuff. So what else is its future?
So if Burns was originally, this was actually going to be a spot that we were going to potentially put battery in, but because we would get the microgrid energy park, we would actually have, that would actually be a much better siting for battery than here. It actually supports more battery.
Gotcha.
Bigger, longer runtime. With the battery is the really is the duration. And so we can have a longer duration battery set up at the energy park than we could here. But we would retain this land, and most likely we would put battery here at some point in time.
Thanks.
That was my update from our side.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next meeting is scheduled for January 12th. Does that work for people as of now?
Yeah.
All right. Any matters not anticipated?
Just announcement of the planning committee is starting public hearings on meeting the MWA, nope, I'm getting my ends, MTA zoning overlays, if that's the right expression. So that
Which is
first
what?
meeting, what's that?
What is that? Sorry, what's?
All right, so this, and I don't actually know much, so I'm gonna hopefully attend the next planning board will explain it. But as I understand it, the state advocates for what we call TOD developments, transit-oriented development. So trying to put people where there is multimodal opportunities. And so they looked at the state and saw, well, where is multimodal available? And then as telling or asking, I'm not sure what the word is, saying that you have to identify developments within a certain distance of your multimodal. And they went through the map and found they've identified each town as which set of criteria to follow. Do you have a bus? You have to follow these rules. If you have a subway, you have to follow these rules. If you have commuter rail, blah, blah, blah. So Wakefield was identified under the commuter rail label. So we have to have had to have a housing density of X, and I don't know the number, within a half-mile or commuter rail station. And so this is, I believe it will be an overlay to our zoning. If someone comes in with a development that helps us meet that density, zoning requests for variances are not necessary. So similar to a housing thing, or like a 40B, if you help us, provide low income, you can not have to follow some rules. This is, encouraging density near the train station.
And I think I read about it in the item, and I think it's also like we need to change zoning in certain areas close to the
Well, that's what I don't know if it's chaining zoning or applying an overlay to the zoning that allows it. And
I don't know what the
it's
difference is. So, but yes, but they're starting to think about zoning options or
yeah.
in
And I
that.
will
So-
say that it is very punitive if the town does not accept this. We essentially lose access to some significant funding going forward. So it's very, very punitive not to do this.
And one interesting timing, and I don't know how it all works, but so yesterday's item talked about there was a legal ad for a potential housing development in front of MG Fitness. That they're going, starting a development discussion. There's that huge parking lot. Well, that is a half mile from the train station. So right now they're asking to go in front of it. Does this help towards the goal of density? I don't know how that's sequenced and if they qualify and stuff. But so transit oriented development is hopes to get less cars on the road because, between we benefit from trains and buses. So, so planning
The people
committee
that
will
pour
present it
out
to
of the
the foundry.
the foundry, like when the train is pulling it, like the ding dings start going down and people like it's working. That's the whole point, right? Is
Yep.
if you live near the train, you don't need to have a car. I would think we should be supportive of density by the trains. That's the whole idea.
And Wakefield was actually one of the first ones to have a zoning around trains and multimodal. So this is just a little more intense. I personally love it, but there's devils in the details for sure.
Does and I haven't delved into this yet. Is the current housing counts towards that, whatever that density number is, existing stuff?
That
or
I don't.
only being
I
counted new?
When I first read it, it kind of indicated that it didn't. And so I had read about it before the state legislator passed it. So I don't know if they adjusted it or if they allow you to look back a couple years. So like something as big as the foundry and other things being on Foundry Street, do they qualify? I look forward to hearing more of what actually got passed and what applies to us.
There's still
Yeah,
a lot of
kind of-
uncertainty. And a lot of the towns are treating this as an unfunded mandate, so they're trying to get funding to make sure that we can look at everything. And so, but I think it's great. I think we're being very proactive with the planning board starting the process this week. Again, I think we're being a little ahead of the curve on this one.
Well, and I think because there'll be so many questions, it may take a while, but let's flush them out, right?
There's some good articles. If you don't want to rely on the item, there's some good articles in the Globe and other places on this too. I'm not sure I'd rely on the item on this issue.
The
particularly.
nuances are going to be important,
Personally.
yes.
Yes.
Those details. So I just want to mention that to everyone because it may be, if nothing else, just so learn a few things.
All right. Anything else? Okay.
We don't usually go this long, students. New
Yeah.
students. Sorry, you really got a rough first meeting.
Our last meeting of the year. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
So student members, this is where we go around and everyone says yes or no, whether they want to adjourn the meeting. So I will call your name and that's.
Has anyone ever said no?
I've attended a meeting that someone paused the closing of a meeting.
Okay.
Really?
Well, they forgot something and they wanted to share it.
Okay.
Right, Dan,
yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tiana,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Fiona,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Sean,
Aye.
Anne,
Yes.
Myra,
No. Just kidding. Let it test it out. Yes.
William.
Yes.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a happy holidays.
So
Happy
everyone.
holidays.
Good night.
Bye.